All right, it's 7:30, so we'll start the facilities meeting. I'm Aaron Durst, I'm the chairman. If you guys just say who's here around the table, so we have record of who's here.
Mike Wolf.
Casey Blankenhorn.
Kathy Haynes is here, she'll have a microphone. Lauren Small.
Who's on first? No, sorry. David
What?
Kevin Strobel. Rob Rowley.
Brett Cooper.
All right, in attendance, I see we have Halter Landscaping and Interstate. Thank you very much. So before we get, I know we're mainly here for the proposals for the maintenance and facilities cleaning, but we had something that came across our desk that I'm going to touch base on real quick. It's from the Maple Springs Swimming Association. For those who don't know, it's the pool that's right below the high school. They're looking to do a 5K on Saturday, June 15th at 9 a.m. The proposed course of the 5K is going to start at the high school, then it's going to loop through the east side of Birdsboro and end at the high school parking lot. Setup would begin at 7:30. 5Ks usually take about an hour and a half, and they're out of there by 10. They're asking for the normal fee for that would be, because they're going to go run around the school, loop the stadium and out. Technically, the normal fee for that would be $250. They're asking for relief on the fee, and I would just like to remind the board that they allow us to utilize and have for years, their parking lot for any type of overflow or whatever, and they've never wanted to charge the school district. So I would like to reciprocate that favor and allow them to utilize this for free so they can make the most they can off their fundraiser.
I'm fine with it.
All right, seeing no objections, then can we add this to the agenda for the cow? I appreciate everyone's cooperation on that. Next, we do have, I'm going to have Mr. Small kind of steer the conversation on the bids that have come in. So, Mr. Small, thank you for doing this.
Okay, Monday at 1 o'clock, we had the previously announced opening of the RFP responses. We had 3 responses, one from ADM/GCA, one from Interstate, and one from SSC. You have before you the summary of the responses. GCA responded to the custodial base, which is all employees go with the vendor. Then your custodial alternate, that brings 4 head custodians back to Daniel Boone. The balance of the employees are vendor employees. And then the maintenance base is all vendor employees. So you can see that GCA ADM responded on all 3. Interstate responded to the custodial base and the alternate custodial and the maintenance base. SSC chose only to respond to the custodial base and the maintenance base. They weren't interested in the hybrid with employees being held back. There was also a maintenance alternate, but that simply was all the employees stayed with Boone, so there was no response from the vendors. So the numbers that you see there are the numbers as we received them for each of the 3 years in the proposal. And working through the numbers, we haven't got all the answers we want yet, namely because we have serious concerns. If you look at the maintenance base numbers, that would be your 3rd set of numbers, final all the way across. You see the difference in numbers between the three. So this being an RFP, we have flexibility in that we can interview, we can negotiate, we can ask all sorts of questions, and that's where we're at. I try to get references on from various entities that are listed as references. I got voicemails, and I'm waiting for answers, so that's a big part of it. But our biggest concern is in the disparity. Well, first of all, the GCA response has got a lot of questions on it that we kind of set that aside for the present. But comparing Interstate with SSC, that's a pretty major difference between those two numbers over all 3 years. And as we dig into the financials that are provided to support the bid, we find even more questions as it related to hourly wages, benefits being paid. You almost think somebody made a mistake. How there could be this much disparity between the numbers. We also have an issue with one of them as it relates to the hours being provided and thus the headcount being provided. We were very specific in the RFP for the base. In the custodial segment, we requested 27 employees and we spelled out their work schedule and what buildings they were in. And as all of you are well aware, the problem over the last 3 years is inadequate staffing. So that's why we were so specific with the way we presented it this time, so that we could have accountability moving along. Both vendors hit the target, hit the mark with the maintenance portion, but on the custodial side, we've got an issue we've got to try to get answers on from one of the vendors there. So we're not as far along as we had hoped to be tonight. Casey came in on the tail end of a phone call I had with Brian Subers about 6:30 tonight, reviewing all of this. And while we won't be able to have it on the cow by Monday night, he feels that we will be able to accomplish everything we're trying to accomplish, so that when he is here on the 15th, he feels we still potentially could have a recommendation for you. Any specific questions I can answer from anyone? Yes?
SSC was at every board meeting for the last year.
Yes?
Anybody get in touch with them?
Not yet.
It just seems so
Not-
shocked that they're not here. He's been at every meeting. I'm like, wow.
And I asked Dr. Cooper and Casey, because I haven't communicated directly with him, but he has been communicating with them.
And I don't have a preference. Just
Maybe he's out of town. I don't know. I was surprised because he as you,
Every meeting.
but there will be a contact tomorrow after we've dug into this today.
Does the custodial base, does that does that include a differential? So do they have their own head custodians with a pay differential in there?
Well, that's part of our questions, because our specifications require a head custodian in each building. Under the custodial alternate, the 4 head custodians were Dan DeBoon, with the remaining employees being vended. But when you look at the financials that support their quotes, or their bids, whatever you want to refer to them as, the numbers are curious. For instance, one has the same hourly rate for all full-time custodians. Is that an average? Another one says it's an average labor rate. So we're trying to get to the bottom of how these labor rates are playing out and what they're actually going to pay the employees. The other big disparity, as you dig into the details, is the cost of benefits. The difference is just phenomenal. So that's why we're asking. Does that answer your question, Mr. Redfield?
Is that, they're providing us a bid, again, I'm new to the board. Does it matter what they pay them or what the benefit packages are to us as the person hiring them? I mean, what is it, how does that affect us?
It doesn't, except when you have this much disparity, you want to make sure it's accurate.
Okay.
Because in the final analysis, yes, the numbers that you see here get divided by 12. Kathleen gets an invoice. She compares, they're required to then submit a monthly labor report. And that's where we have had the problems over the last 3 years. By year one, we were having a massive short because they simply did not provide the hours. But to your point, do we really care? Yes. I want to make sure it's accurate.
I got you.
Trying to avoid problems down the road.
It's a great process. I was just wondering if there was
No.
some
In the final analysis, that's what it comes down to. Now, there are clauses in there that if we ask them to do something above and beyond, then there's negotiation there for additional charges. But for the base service, every month, it's simply the numbers that you have divided by 12.
So this one, I know we had a conversation about the head custodian piece. Did our last contract have that in there?
It was,
Last current contract.
no, that wasn't specific, I don't believe. That was more, this many hours custodial, this many hours maintenance, this many hours grounds. And that's where we found that there wasn't adequate supervision. And part of what we're going to dig into here as part of this negotiation process, we'd like to see resumes, if you will, on the individuals that are going to be provided, the positions that are going to be provided. What is with this much disparity, what pool of employees are we dealing with?
Then so, next question then, under the maintenance piece, where did we wind up as far as, I know the lease agreement with the Miami Township Park was brought to our attention. So what went out to bid?
Nothing yet. Nothing yet. This is just maintenance.
This is just
custodial.
internal maintenance.
Correct. This is building maintenance.
Yeah. Okay.
The next piece will be the RFP that will go out, one for grounds and athletic fields, and a separate one for snow removal. So the grounds athletic field piece will then specify the services required for overall mowing, trimming, grounds maintenance around all buildings, and the component for athletic fields as it relates to the maintenance and prepping the fields for athletic competition. That's what Casey's working on now.
So did the bid go out for maintenance? Like having one electrician, one carpenter, one plumber, or is it just
It was four,
four general maintenance?
Yeah, it was two first shift, two second shift staff was what was on the list. And then I believe we provided job descriptions as part of it to kind of give them an idea of what we're asking for, kind of thing. So I don't think it definitely spelled out that it's an HVAC tech, an electrician, a plumber.
That was one of the things I was, I know everybody's aware, but I had asked to kind of see our maintenance requests. So I was kind of trying to handle exactly what our typical month looks like. I've always had the question of do we bring in outside, have a list of approved outside contractors that we bring in to handle some of these things, or do we have a guy internally that's able to do that? So I wasn't sure what exactly our workload was as far as some of these things. So
yeah, the duties and responsibilities for each of the four maintenance positions are spelled out, and it gets into all the various electrical, HVAC, assisting head custodians. It encompasses,
And so some of the stuff's, some of the plumbing issues and, broken switches, and, you can take a general maintenance guy, but, I saw that he had the, replacing all the lights in the gym. I figured when the outside contractor would be better to handle that instead of trying to get our inside guys to do all that in one shot, so. Stuff like that, I wasn't sure how that was being pieced into the contract.
Normally what we'll do is what I'll call the do it now kind of repairs are going to be done by the outsourcing firm. Any compressor replacements on HVAC equipment, you have to reclaim refrigerant. I bring a contractor in. As a matter of fact, we had wire burned off in the lights by the driveway at the football field. It's something a little more involved than what we can do with the staff we have. It just ties the guys up too long, so the contractor will be called in for that. So generally, I will have the maintenance staff inspect any service calls first, and then at that point, we'll determine if it's something that we can do in-house, or if it's something we have to use a contractor for. Usually there's not many jobs that we can at least assess the issues first, or rather than having to call somebody in.
Have you found that the guys we have now in place have finally got to this level where they're able to handle now most of what the routine stuff?
Yeah. Yeah, they need a little pep in their step, but, they've come a long way in a year and a half.
any other questions?
I mean, we do have the representative here from Interstate, so you heard Mr. Small with some of his concerns. I saw you taking notes. I know he said he reached out, he hasn't heard back. Are you guys going to?
No, we've been in communications.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Are you clear on everything that you need as far as fixing or whatever you would need to do to your bid?
Yes.
Okay. Any answers now, or you got to go back and look at things?
I think we'll be in further communication because I haven't addressed everything with them at the surface after I was on the phone with Brian Supers this evening.
Okay.
So just to throw it out there, I know, again, one of the big discussions we've been having is about the bringing the head custodians back in shop. I'm neither here nor there. That's why I was kind of curious as to whether the base proposal included having paying for a head custodian. I mean, the reason I would be against the head custodian being our employee would be, being in that role in my past life of being an on-site contractor. How does our head custodian have any authority over the outsourced employee? That's not, they can't discipline them. That's not their role. That's the role of the contracted company. Should be internal discipline issues. So I'm just not sure.
I saw, and I understand, I kind of saw it more as if we went that route, we might not, that each building has somebody that has ownership, so they're going to be a little bit more pursuing of issues of cleanliness or different things. Maybe they won't be. I mean, you can argue it either way, I agree. But I looked at it as perhaps having somebody with ownership of the high school, that they're going to do everything they can to make sure they're not getting complaints. Yes, things might be out of their control, but maybe they have that relationship where they're getting more work out of the people than possibly somebody in a corporate office who knows how far away. I mean, I see it both ways.
If you have a contracted head custodian that is actually has a supervisory authority in that building.
Right.
It's just another custodian who you put a title on and say, hey, that's the head custodian.
Well, I was looking, I'm sorry, Mr. Stroll, if I can jump in. I was looking at it more of, right now, the individual building administrators fill out that report card, okay? This person would be somebody really knowledgeable about where all the somewhat skeletons are hidden, would be the person to complete that. He would be he or she would be our advocate to make sure that the job is being done right, because they understand it and they can develop more time, plus it frees up the administrator's time from not having to walk around and figure out what's deficient in their building. That's kind of a positive for it. Sorry.
Absolutely, there's, you could kind of.
You could go with either way.
positives on both sides of it. One of the negatives might be, just to kind of throw the other in there, is that, you have 12 people working for Daniel Boone. How do you divvy up the work? You know what I mean? How do you, especially if they're responsible, the outside contractor might, they're here, they kind of, again, it's really, I don't know how it requires less management or more management. I think there's still a lot of what, to your point, where there's ownership, or maybe filling that out, there's a better process there, but
I think-
sure, a lot of questions on both sides of it.
Have we ever thought about going back to an ancient past where we had an assistant manager in our maintenance and facilities department? That person could be tasked with being the person in charge of the custodial, making sure that that's being up to stuff, and then if that person also has skills that has some mechanical skills that are above what the average person is, and whether it's plumbing or electrical or whatever, they would be another. I think Casey's expertise in HVAC brings a lot to the table. But be somebody else that's kind of a step above. I know when was that position cut? I was like,
That was before my time, because it was just Ken Smith, as far as I can remember, because he was the clerk of the works for the stadium, and that's what, there's a lot of things didn't get done during that time because there was nobody else. But
We took similar building sizes, but we took their reports, and then when we got reports that were not aligned with the reports they see, that's when we held them accountable. So we kind of got that accountability, but it required somebody to do that too. When you're getting these reports and you get 4 calls from somebody in the high school that, hallways weren't clean, or there was a bathroom destroyed or whatever, if that report showed that it was clean, that's when we went back. That's where the accountability came in. Again, whatever ends up working out where it's best for the district.
I know one of the things I appreciated when GCA came in was they did hire some of, I think, the district's better employees. And, I do have a concern for those people that I'd like to see whoever takes this potentially still maybe utilize them. These are people that live in our community, have been committed to Daniel Boone for years.
Typically, does the contract have in there that all current employees get hired on?
I don't think so, because it was technically their GCA employees.
So when we used to take over accounts, when I was in food service, typically we took all the current employees on.
That was a requirement 3 years ago.
Yeah.
We developed the enhanced wages to make it palatable. But as Mr. Durson says, they're no longer our employees.
Yes, ma'am. I see you want to say something.
Hey,
Yeah.
I can speak to that for interstate at least. Whoever's in good standing with the school district who you would like for us to keep on board, we would extend the offer.
Okay, that's good to know. I know I can't base my decision solely on that, but it does play a factor in. These are people that live in our community and are committed to Daniel Boone. I'd at least like to give them a chance to maintain employment.
Mr. Radkett's question, the RFP did call for a head custodian in each of the 4 buildings, and there is a specific head custodian job description that's part of the article.
Casey, I don't want to talk numbers in public based on what we're looking at, but I think we had a number when we were looking at like a maintenance person a couple years ago, and they had like a dollar figure in there. Did you do the math on these 3 different? Of course you did.
Or did Skyward?
Skyward did, yes.
Skyward knew you were going to ask that question.
Because when I'm looking at these bids, the dollar amounts per employee or per hour, depending on how you want to look at it, all of them, even the lowest one, falls within the range that we were looking at.
That was kind of some of the questions that came up with Mr. Small and Mr. Subers on the phone this evening. What is stated in the proposal as an hourly rate being paid to an employee, I don't see how they can pay the employee that rate and only charge us what they're going to charge us for a lump sum. That's why I walked up to Mr. Small's office initially, just to kind of bounce that off to him, and I got brought it into the phone call, kind of thing. So I think that's where we need some clarity on our end as a school district, because there again, if they're going to be paying X dollars an hour, which is similar to what the current staff is being paid on the custodial side, we're going to have pretty much the same kind of issues that we currently have. If they're only paying a low hourly rate for a maintenance technician, what are we going to get? What band-aids are going to be done that I'm not aware of on equipment and then causing problems down the road, kind of thing. So that's where some of my concerns are. So that's why I asked Mr. Small and Mr. Subers that a little more clarity as to where those hourly rates will fall for the staff, because then we can make a true comparison for what in-house staff costs, maintenance, custodial, compared to what their true costs are. I think there's too many unknowns in those costs that were provided at this point in time. And just to give you guys a clarity too on the head custodians, the main reason why I had asked that would be an option was simply to have a set of eyes in the building for day-to-day cleaning. So, if I'm doing inspections once a week in a building, if I'm there on a Tuesday and they had a full staff on a Tuesday, the building may be clean. But come Thursday, if somebody was out and stuff wasn't done, if I don't get to that building until the following Tuesday, those issues may have been resolved. Having a head custodian there that would report to me would just be a kind of set of eyes there. There are some troubles with that. As we stated before, there are employees that have no authority really over the contractor per se. So that would have to be reported back to me. Then I would have to go to their supervisor to assess, to address any issues that were missed. So, it's a tough little option, but I thought that, with the current situation we have, it would be a good idea just to kind of entertain to see where the cost would be if it was worthwhile to have that person, in-house.
Something to think about too is just maybe a half a person at a building per day, maybe another option for you. Unless they're actually functioning, cleaning, you almost have to do. So you replace somebody else.
And there again, if the new contractor has an on-site supervisor that is doing what he's supposed to be doing, that should not be a need of mine to be at a building every day, kind of thing. So, and that's all part of that relationship. We had done tours prior when Doug Moreno was here, who was their first on-site supervisor for GCA. That lasted for about 2 or 3 months, and then it proved to be not worthwhile at that point in time. So then we just stopped. We stopped doing the checks.
One of the custodial positions that's called for is labeled as a floater. 4 hours in this building, and then where
One thing I'd like to point out, and I forgot to mention this before we got to this process, but I think as we are doing bids moving forward, I think one of the things we need to ask of these vendors is we're giving them something, money. And I think when we do bids from here on out, we also need to see what is that vendor going to give us. Because these people want our business, and that's when you maybe get them to sponsor 10 iPads a year or something. I think we need to start throwing caveats into our bids like that, because businesses will do things like that as well as we provide them a service. We pay all these vendors a lot of money, and yes, they do cleaning, but what else do they do? What else do they do for the Daniel Boone community? So I think we need to start throwing things in there to see what else is in it for us other than just them cleaning in this case, or in another case something else, because I know in past experience doing that, you'd be surprised what vendors will come to the table with. And I think with the school sponsoring iPads or something like that only benefits us in a whole nother capacity and getting another service. So I just think in the future we got to consider that when we're writing some more of our bids to see what they're going to provide services for us.
Here's just one thing I thought of when Mr. Small mentioned that we do have that float team position. That could be a position, if we were not going to bring, head custodians in-house, it would be that one staff member to be an employee that would be kind of right underneath me. That person would then claim the administration. So we would have an employee doing the offices here where all the confidential stuff is, and that person could also be somebody who can be out inspecting the buildings daily, in an afternoon. It is, when you mentioned that, it just kind of, the gears started turning a little bit. I think that would probably be, rather than bringing 4 in, I would definitely like to possibly see that one, come in-house possibly. That would definitely be an option.
Many of the companies provided you with a format. For example, we're going to meet on Wednesday, every Monday, we're going to meet every Tuesday, what that protocol is. Because at the end of the day, keeping any cleaning company, we talked about this prior to, it's all going to be about accountability, and then there's whatever meetings that are set up, or however plan to do it. And sometimes having them come to the table too, it'll tell you a whole lot about the company, whether or not, and then plus too, is they're telling you this is what we're going to do, and so that becomes part of that expectation, that other than just come to you or work so many hours.
Dr. Cooper and I actually had that conversation, 2 days ago, or even yesterday it was, just about, kind of where we see ourselves and so where I see myself going in and supervising and the needs of that and that kind of stuff. So, we've started kind of having that conversation a little bit.
I like that idea.
What's that?
I like that idea. The half custodian here.
Well, I think that's something that we probably need to continue discussion as a whole at the COW, because that would impact what we're working on, which is the budget. So maybe we can add that as an item on the COW so we can have a conversation as a collective group. It is 8:05. I want to be sensitive to the next committee that needs to meet. I don't want to cut us off if there are any other important questions that you'd like to ask Mr. Small.
Well, I do one thing, and maybe we can adjourn and continue, but when are we, because we're going to go out to bid on the grounds, and we do need to discuss the AMI license agreement. So when were we planning to discuss that?
Facilities again on the 15th?
We can, I don't know if we did. If we do, we can. I'll let Mrs. McNeely know. I think I wasn't, but yeah, but I will let her know, but I will not be here. So if someone that's on the committee is willing to run that meeting, I would just let Mrs. McNeely know that we...
When are we going out to bid for the grounds?
Casey's working on the specs.
Yeah, I actually had 2 proposals, a a spec from Brandywine School District and a spec from Twin Valley. They've been outsourcing their mowing for 15, 20 years.
Can we re-adjourn in the library and discuss the license agreement?
You most certainly can. I have to stick in for the next meeting. But again, I'll have Kathy do one for the 15th. Can somebody chair it for me? That's Mr. Rathgab.
Did I
One person
read
here doesn't have the
CDC
chair,
coming tomorrow?
committee chair.
Mr. Rathgab.
Yes.
Yeah.
Colonel Wolf's coming
I thought Mr. Wolf was,
I think he nominated you. Would you mind sharing it if I ask Mrs. McNeely to add that to the agenda? I mean, to the schedule?
Yeah, there's just only one person here that doesn't have a chairmanship. I just figured you'd want to take it. Yeah.
If you do a good job, I'll surrender. That's fine. I'm not. Okay, we do that? Can we?
He's enthusiastic.
Ask her.
He loves that.
For the
Okay.
15th.
So we'll add it for the 15th, normal time, 6:15 in the library. Does that work for the committee that's currently here? Yes. Thank you. I appreciate you doing that, Mr. Rathgab, filling into my absence. With no other comments, questions, or concerns, this meeting adjourns at 8:08 p.m.